Hello and welcome, pilgrims, to episode 3 of the CicadaCast, hosted live in the Cicada Solvers Discord. Today, we'll be discussing the archival challenges of documenting the 3301 phenomenon, organizational complexity, and the project management obstacles that have arisen in our efforts to solve Liber Primus. My name is the Clockwork Bird. I'll be your host this evening. You'll likely remember me from episode 1. I'm the community liaison here at Cicada Solvers Discord. I assist in community management, but principally I make sure that there is good communication between the user base and the staff. So if there are any issues that need to be addressed or feedback, that goes through me. As a kind of fun aside from this position, I explore the way solvers interact with the multi-layered narratives that have so far been curated by Cicada. That would maybe mean the themes of the puzzle and how they interact with that. All of this, of course, is from my fiendish perspective as a digital anthropologist. I am also joined today by my familiar co-host, admin of the Cicada Solvers Discord, Taiwo.
Hello, it's me again. You may remember me from the other episodes, but I will introduce myself either way. I'm Taiwo. I've been managing the Cicada Solvers community since 2013. I specialize in programming and cryptography. I make various bots and scripts and tools used by the community, as well as contributing to various solving efforts over the years. And we're joined again by my other co-host, Puck.
Hey everyone, I'm Puck. I've been the community organizer since January of 2020. I organize voice sessions, moderate the subreddit, and from time to time I also work on the wiki. We're also joined tonight by Artorius, whom you may recognize from last episode.
Hello, Solvers. My name is Artorius. I've been a part of the Cicada Solvers community since September 2019, and I've been moderating the Discord since July of 2020. I'm also the creator of CicadaSolvers.com, which is an in-development attempt to create an improved and expanded successor to the Uncovering Cicada Wikia. Among other functions, CicadaSolvers.com also serves as the host of CicadaCast's RSS feed. And for this episode, we bring you another guest speaker, a worm of many names, the fourth dimension incarnate, the Wiki Witch of the West themselves, Uncovering Cicada Wiki Administrator Shverdy.
I'm Shverdy. I wasn't always an administrator. You may recognize me under the nick 4-dimensional. I joined in late 2016, and in 2017 I was granted the keys to the kingdom to edit the wiki because it was ugly. But at the time I didn't have anything other than content mod and was just really fixing up ugly pages. And I've been doing it ever since. I haven't left my house in years.
Glad you said that.
It cannot actually be understated just how much work Shverdy has done on the wiki. I think, 129 articles?
Oh, I have no idea. I like to keep a skinny page count.
More articles than you can count on 1,200 hands.
Wait, maybe not.
That's not how math works, but I digress.
Yeah.
This is why it hasn't been solved, by the way, because we can't do math.
This is exactly why.
No. You guys can't do math, guys. Guys, please, I can do math.
I can't. I can barely solve a Rubik's Cube. So, with our little introductions out of the way, I'm going to hand it off to Puck to talk about why we feel this episode is necessary. Do you think that you could give our listeners a wee overview of the relevance of this week's topic?
Sure, I'll give a wee overview.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
So basically, newcomers are often perplexed at the organizational obstacles, community management difficulties, and archival deficiencies associated with the 3301 puzzles. This episode seeks to explain the magnitude and complexity of these challenges as compared to other ARGs and typical project management strategies. We'll begin our discussion today with like a brief synopsis on the evolution of the Cicada Solver's archival tactics throughout the years. So to give like a brief overview, on January 4th, 2012, 3301 posted final.jpg to 4chan's paranormal export. This was the first public communication from 3301, and at the time, there was nothing to indicate that this phenomenon was anything worth preserving. Thus, archives of this event are sparse. Would-be solvers begin to discuss this the strange image and its associated thread, and also discussion threads soon spread to other 4chan boards. In short order, solvers began to congregate on IRC, where much of 2012 solving would end up taking place. As the puzzles progressed, dedicated channels for solving were created, such as Cicada Solvers on Freenode. The nature of IRC tends toward an unorganized chaos, and so after 2012's puzzles drew to an end, solvers waiting in a wake of anticipation realized that they were in need of a more appropriate archival platform, and thus the Uncovering Cicada Wikia was created. For more on that, I'll let Shreddy take it away.
Perfect. I'm not sure if I'm the most qualified to talk about this because I was not here when the Wikia was created. The Wikia was made on January 5th, 2013 by a user, Cuboid3301, I believe.
Not actually 3301.
Oh, no, yeah, they're not. They're just, whatever.
Slight disclaimer.
But before the wiki, primarily in IRC, things that were found important were actually uploaded to Pastebin and like Imgur and websites like that, and were just linked in the topic of the IRC. But those have very limited character counts. It's very much like a tweet for you Zoomers. But you see it every time you join, and that links everything important there. But that is not useful long-term, given just the amount of information that, exists on this stuff. And I remember an old friend telling me he remembered back in the day being like, is this Pastebin more relevant than this one? Which one goes here? And it just took him hours. But when the 2013 puzzle came around and the Wikia was made, it really truly started off as kind of a dumping ground for logs. I can't count how many pages I have deleted and combined into actual articles on the topics the logs were discussing. And that was mostly came as a result of them actively solving the puzzle. So there wasn't really time to look back and do whole write-ups on it. And it just was a mess for years. And then there were also issues with websites that were previously used for hosting, back in the day when the phone camera got more advanced, images started having specific metadata saved in them, such as hardware, software, and location information. And because of that location information, websites started scrubbing metadata from images. And that became a cause of concern because, as we know, a lot of Cicada's images use outguess and such. So we also needed a platform to upload those images and still have, information unmessed with. And that's where I think Wikia is really strong, because as far as I know, they never have and currently do not change the image so much so that it is unreadable in outguess or whatever. But GitHub is also widely used, and it's linked very frequently on the wiki. And so is Infotune, and those links will not be removed because even though it is down, it is possible in the very near future to actually archive all of those files. Not that they're important. We have survived this long without them.
I just want to just step in really quick. This is kind of an indication of the evolution. A few years ago in the start of the wiki, we're starting out with disparate information, and kind of slowly over time now, not slowly, but over time, stepping up the efficacy of our of our resources.
Yeah. And I say we've survived this far without infotome files. Honestly, they're not really necessary. Recently, it was directed to my attention that there is a MIDI file in one of the puzzle steps, and the person was just not able to like find it uploaded anywhere, and I couldn't find it uploaded anywhere, and I don't remember if it was just unable to get anymore or if no one wanted to go through the puzzle steps to retrieve it. But the only reason we actually got it back was because someone had it saved on their hard drive from years ago and was able to re-upload it. And so that was a fun ride. Yeah. So the information is not always complete. There are also past puzzle steps where the HTML or whatever of the Onion sites was not archived. But as we know, they have put useful information there. So who knows? Who's to say?
Now, as many of you know, it's been over 7 years since Liber Primus was released. Uncovering Cicada Wikia has long been the documentation hub for most of the Cicada Solver community, and IRC, for the most part for many years, was the communication hub. In the years following the most recent PGP verified communication from 3301, which would be in 2016 and 2017, IRC activity waned. In April 2019, the Cicada Solvers Discord was created. IRC community activity largely migrated there, and then recently after that, the August 2019 release of the Great Big Story documentary attracted thousands of prospective solvers. As of today, the Discord remains the most active center for solvers to congregate and collaborate. While Discord has proven exceptional as a platform of communication, its potential for archival and documentation is rather limited. As such, many efforts to revise the information contained within the Uncovering Cicada Wikia have been attempted. We've had discussion boards, we've had the IRC itself, mega folders, Google Drive, 2 different Kanban boards. None have succeeded or at least fulfilled the potential that they set out to. For example, the forums, the discussion boards that are out there do contain good information, but most people don't know about them. They never really reach the critical mass that was necessary to become a community-wide resource. If you are interested in frequency analysis, there are still some good posts by our Discord administrator Mortlack on several of these discussion boards. There were also 2 different Kanban boards. Both died shortly, not because people didn't use them, but because they never reached their full potential. IRC itself, as I mentioned, was great as communication, but it was never really good for documentation. There have been many of these attempts, and as of yet, none of them have truly become a replacement for the wiki. The Uncovering Cicada Wiki is where everyone needs to go for documentation, but it isn't exactly great as a newcomer resource.
No, I agree with that. I think you actually stole that line from me, but it's fine, because I'm right. As I normally am.
Yes, it's true, I did.
The Discord has been useful in terms of archiving what other people might have said. That's the handy dandy thing about it, is that if you come in and you have an idea, search the logs. Doesn't matter if it was posted in 2019, 2018, does matter. That the ability to see what other people have talked about, in my experience over the past year, has been incredibly helpful. So once again, we're, evolving into a space where we can have a little bit more control over the...
I'm evolving, but backwards.
Into an ape?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That was...
I'm glad that's been immortalized.
Yeah, I'm glad that this
I don't even know what I said.
But the
Glad you're with us today.
problem that still arises even on the Discord is, how do we organize all of this? And you can see that we have, that we have different channels, that things are organized. At the same
why is it even important that we do? Worm, you can speak to this, given that you're the Uncovering Cicada Wiki administrator. Why do we need solving documentation in the first place?
I'm going to say this. You already know this is my opinion. I think that is a dumb question. It should be self-evident if you have 2 brain cells to rub together. Uh, documentation of any concentrated effort to do anything is always going to be helpful. Not just because of necessarily knowing what has and hasn't worked in the past, because trust me, you are not the first person to ask if we have tried Caesar. We have heard it all before. We even asked the same questions when we joined, because there just is no documentation on what has been tried and didn't work. And obviously what has worked is very well documented, but no one wants to kind of document what hasn't worked. But you still get so much data from failed attempts, and at the very least it knocks something off a list of possibilities. So it's still useful, but it also can help us with trying to identify patterns and what could work next, because even though something doesn't solve a page, it can still lend more clues, or the journey there could just give you more knowledge, and you might have a better idea of how to move on from your failures.
Also, when we have solid documentation, you're planting the seeds for somebody else to get inspired by your work, especially when
Yeah.
it's crisp. That, we have members here who have done excellent documentation, and other people have looked at it and still look at it and use it as a reference, crib lists and
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is with it is it also doesn't matter how much you document something. There are still going to be people, even when you tell them, well, no, that has been tried, here's why it doesn't work, here's why we know it won't work, here is why we know you shouldn't really bother trying. If they're convinced enough in their own idea, they will do it anyway.
But then why doesn't it happen?
I have noticed there tend to be a few kinds of people who come into this server, and not to put anyone in a box or make them feel like I'm calling them out in any sort of way. I'm not. But it's the mindset that people come in with. Some people come in and they believe they have all the answers, but there are also people, like I noticed in Clockwork, who are just simply curious and want to know more. So it's
Yeah, there are a lot of different people, but they tend to follow some main things. So
and
how about you take that over?
Yeah.
Because I know
mean,
you've been here the longest. You know a lot about this.
I don't think anybody could argue that documentation was a bad thing. I think over the years, so many people have come in and kind of express their ideas for the ultimate documentation system, the way to archive everything. How do we actually organize this mess? What system should we be using? What resources would be good from the solver's perspective? What resources would be convenient from the documentation, the creation of the documentation's perspective? None of these have ever really worked, with obviously a couple of exceptions, basically the only one being the Wikia, with the addition of a lot of work that's gone into refining the information that was sporadically kind of thrown in there into what we now know to be valuable. But I think 2014, post 2014 documentation is basically a problem in its own league, because it's impossible to organize information if you can't differentiate between information that needs to be stored and information that just isn't relevant. I actually took this question to a community of project management enthusiasts, I suppose, and they kind of just weren't even familiar with the concept of organizing something that has no progress, no way to distinguish good from bad. An analogy I came up with is that it's like a jigsaw puzzle with no reference image. Even though it might be possible to solve the jigsaw puzzle, it's impossible to organize the attempt of solving the jigsaw puzzle. Everything is just a chaotic mess until you eventually find the solution. in the case of Cicada, there is no way to classify something as relevant in the same way. For example, a theory. Is a theory good or is it bad? For example, like, how would you guys determine, is a theory good or bad? And should we even be doing that?
So strictly for me, and
Mhm.
I'm someone who is not cryptographically inclined, not numerically or mathematically or programming minded, but still, when I come up with a theory or I see somebody come up with a theory, I want to make sure that it has relevance to past puzzle steps, to things that have been mentioned by Cicada, things that are thematically relevant. And when I say thematically relevant, I would mean, as I said earlier, things that were mentioned by Cicada or were in a similar vein of cryptography, magic squares, rainbow squares, things like that. I'm sure that my more cryptography minded colleagues could say more, but but for me, when theory crafting and then giving critique on somebody else's theory, that understanding how connected it is, how relevant it is. And that's a tricky process that, well, I will have a different discussion about this in a little bit, but the way that we go about um, that evaluation is a whole process in and of itself. But this is just my um, my non cryptographic theory idea. So I'm sure that
Yeah. I mean,
And as me, who's somebody I guess you could say takes ideas on like the more cryptographic level of things, I'm kind of like I shoot down ideas, so to speak. That's kind of my role here to an extent. Basically, I basically have like two tests. First off, does it have like actual cryptographic basis? And then second, does it like align with like the cryptanalysis we've conducted? Like, will this idea produce low doublets, and will it produce relatively uniform rune frequencies, stuff like that?
And also the
And
question of, does it vibe? You know,
what?
Cicada
no, I
has a vibe.
understand. No, I understand what you're saying.
Well, I know I'm saying from like a purely cryptographic
Yeah.
thing.
like, do we archive if somebody comes in and suggests that we should convert the runes into a seismograph reading, for example?
I say if you have the time for that, go for it. It's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
It's probably not gonna work. It's not an earthquake, but you
It
might as
doesn't
well
matter if
try
it
it.
works. It's interesting.
But to what level? When do we start? When do we start?
I think there's a fine line between documented as serious and documented as a community meme of sorts.
True.
Because there is
but-
still the page with the meme making fun of Cheetah Burn for asking, "Has anyone tried Caesar?"
Yeah.
And it's
That was in the
Or like
IRC.
the
That-
common meme of converting everything to MIDI, but there are actually steps where MIDI was relevant. So it's like, people suggesting silly things. Who is to say that that nothing is relevant? And then you get this problem. People might come in and say, "Well, why don't we just archive everything?"
I think as
throws it
soon
right
as we
back.
start drawing a hard line of no, that is absolutely silly, Cicada would be like, "Uh-oh."
Well, see,
Would be ashamed if I
Alright,
sprinkled
we
it in
definitely need to do that.
randomly.
We definitely need to do that at some point. Like, there's no way just reading a book is gonna solve LP. Like, what we try to do with Redbook when we all see them.
Yeah.
But
as
like,
Tyler was saying, the line that we draw is at the pragmatism behind it.
totally.
It's not personal. Genuinely, it's personal in the sense that we want to
Solve the puzzle.
educate people. Exactly. That if you come in and you suggest Caesar, that the amount of analysis that has been done on that subject is exhausted. That
Yes.
or
Well-
something like a seismograph, that it's just it's an nth degree of separation away from what is relevant, and that's where you have to draw the line, and that's a sensitive game.
Yeah. Well, like, sure, we want to teach people about cool things, like, I don't know, Caesar. I mean, like, if you're just in here doing like just joining cryptography, so to speak, like, or just getting into cryptography,
I
not
think
joining it, you can sure, it's good to teach people about stuff, but primarily we're here to solve the puzzle.
Yeah.
And
I
that
think you are
comes
more
not like
likely nowadays to receive an answer that is telling you why Caesar doesn't work than just telling you it doesn't work.
Yeah, totally. We can say exactly why.
And so
Mhm.
I would actually disagree with saying we are here to solve the puzzle, because I am not. I am here to educate people who come in here looking for a puzzle. And then when it doesn't get solved because puzzle, they still have learned something. And I think that's more important than solving LP. And by the way,
Well, that
LP
actually-
solved is just the McChicken recipe.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
That-
Well,
$5
the
on
goal
it.
that
I'm trying to
is
get $5.
That
Yeah,
actually
the-
falls in line with what 3301 has said with the most recent puzzle. In 2014, the stated goal of the puzzle was not recruitment as it was in previous years, it was enlightenment.
Mhm.
Exactly. I totally just haven't given up.
Yeah, yeah. Like, sure, we are. I think this is where we kind of disagree here, Shverdy. Like, we are definitely here to talk about or to teach people stuff. Well, but like that's not necessarily the main focus as a community. We're called Cicada Solvers.
Yeah. I would say
Like
you put solving first and education second, and I have them
Yeah.
flipped.
yeah,
I would
that's
almost
exactly what
say
we're saying.
I would almost say that the education is an inevitable consequence of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
pursuit of
that
solving.
too. But
I
I would
agree.
rather tell someone about Visionaire than be like, oh wait, it was all Visionaire this whole time. I solved it. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd rather people
I
learn
agree.
than actually solve it.
So
We get people here for the mystery and teach them while they're here.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Cicada
yeah,
is
yeah.
excellent clickbait. It's just
Yeah.
amazing clickbait.
Okay.
Oh, you came here for a bug? You're gonna learn. Sit down.
Okay, another thing. Kind of back on topic from bug puzzle. So we kind of have this thing where there's an interesting question around, but that's why is there no way to determine if a solving attempt was conclusive or completed correctly? Which is a big thing here. People go they try something and people respond, they ask in the server, oh, has this been done? And we go, yeah, we know it's been tried, but we don't know if it's been tried correctly.
Yeah. There's like
Mhm.
100 different ways to convert the runes to a seismograph, and there's 100 different ways to mess it up.
Glad
So,
we're
like-
glad we're sticking
Or
with the
I'll
graphic.
I'll even
And
take it a
more.
level I'll even take it a level further, the classic constellation question.
Mm.
Everyone who comes to us thinking that the dots on a certain page are representative of a constellation
Mhm.
comes to us with a different constellation.
Yes.
And that is
Yes,
that's
yes,
because
Yeah.
there are a nigh infinite amount of stars in the sky, given enough and some people even expand it beyond those visible in the night sky to the naked human eye. Some people say, oh, if you take these stars in Andromeda, well, how far do you expand the search?
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are innumerable possibilities, and that is one of the reasons why it is unlikely that those dots are representative of a constellation.
Yeah. But before
I'd say that's more
people
of a,
hear that
a
idea,
reference than a solving attempt, though.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and speaking of references, there actually is a way to classify references as relevant or irrelevant. And the way to do that is how many steps removed, how many degrees of separation, degrees of relevancy, so to speak, from an actual 3301 theme. Is the reference related to
Yeah.
privacy?
Mhm.
You can't just say, oh, it's titled
Well,
Liber
you have to
and start going off that.
you really have to. I mean, you can't mess. Privacy. That's not good enough. That's so broad
Yeah.
that you'd have to really grill down, and even then, most things have at least a degree of separation. Unless you are
Mhm.
talking directly about, I don't know, something that William Blake did. But even then, you consider, what about the pragmatic aspect of that inquiry? That it has a low degree of separation one way, but another way, it has a high degree of separation because it's not cryptographically relevant. And
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe that's a little off topic, but it's just something that I wanted to slide.
Yeah, there's many ways in which you can like claim relevant, like in which something can be relevant and irrelevant in different avenues. And then there's like I think it's important to note that these struggles are, to link it back to documentation, what are like the driving force, that the primary barrier to the creation of more comprehensive documentation is that there's a lack of motivation on top of like a solving attempt, or a if you come into the server with a theory and the theory is disputed, do we document the theory, and who is responsible for documenting the theory? If you begin a solving attempt and it ends up failing, but instead of documenting the solving attempt, you decide to try an iteration of that attempt, at what point do you stop solving and go back and document all of the steps leading up to that point? And how common is it? And I don't know why I'm phrasing this as a question, because I'm kind of saying that it is common that when you finish solving, that you just can't be bothered to document all of that stuff. And
I actually want to. V1C Wraith said cross versus signpost, and I just want to say I remember fighting with him about, or it was either with him or against him, someone in IRC, and me and V1C just arguing over whether or not it was a cross or a sign.
So
or
listeners,
a cross or like a fence or a sign.
Listeners, if you are unaware what Shverdy's talking about, on the pages of 0.jpg through 2.jpg, there is a certain marginalia. The nature of it is disputed. Some people think it is an Orthodox or Byzantine cross or crucifix, and some people think it is a signpost, which might seem outlandish to
I think it's
on the surface. But regarding the signpost,
some people think it's just a shape. Some people think of it as a proportion marker. I mean, everything goes on.
There are plenty of theories for it, especially regarding the signpost, given that we are told that the Liber Primus is the way. What was the quote? Their words are the direction, their numbers are the map. Something along those lines.
Words are map, numbers are the direction.
Words are map, numbers are the
Long
direction.
story short, a lot of things
back on topic.
we share the same brain cell.
The only thing I wanted to add to the thing that I said previously was that have you ever seen that image of like the miner who's mining a tunnel, and like right before the edge of the
gets
tunnel,
before the diamond.
No.
Yes, before the diamonds, and it's like behind you is documentation, but like in front of you is like the thing that renders all of that documentation completely useless, is like the solution. Like, we don't need to document all of the failed attempts if the next attempt is the solution attempt, right? So
well, how do you know you're just not retrying old things that have been done that are slowing you down?
Yeah, and
the person in the bulldozer scooping up the diamonds above you is the one who is just reading the documentation that you were writing.
We're going into analogy hell again.
No, yeah, these analogies are actually awful. Another thing, if you guys are interested in like actually solving and doing documentation, or like make sure you document while you're doing it, because trust us, you will not go back and document it.
No.
And also, it will help you clarify your own thoughts. Like, you can always look back and see the logic behind it, and then see if there are any like fallacies in it if you do want to continue it. Trust me, it actually does benefit you too.
That's the other thing.
And I'm not even saying that as like you guys, we need you to document. I'm saying that it will actually help you too, which is just awesome. It
absolutely will.
Even
it's
if
not
it's
only
documentation benefits everybody.
In the Discord, it's just like updating people with what you're doing and what you've done. Like, tried this, didn't work. Allows it to be searchable. Allows you to just kind of document things with like a low like level of effort.
Yeah. Preferably do more than that, but like, because people are probably going to come back and like actually DM you and be like, how did you do this? Because people do that. So preferably get it done, but I mean, just get as much of it done as you can.
Don't run from your responsibilities.
Speaking of responsibilities,
You
Guess
have a
what?
responsibility to document even your failures.
You have a
Okay,
dog.
Said-
well, not that.
It will not
I-
only benefit the community, it will benefit yourself. If you're serious about solving, this is the way you get your thoughts together. You document everything that has
It's
failed
just
and you
like
learn
writing
from it.
code. What's the point of having code if you won't remember what it does in 2 weeks? That's a self burn. I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is a
comment.
self
We
burn, by
just
the way.
forgot how the
Comments.
tools worked. We just forgot how
Okay.
it worked. We just damn forgot it.
Actually, speaking of comments on like solving ideas,
Mhm.
people don't know what they're doing. And that is why we have the Cicada subreddit. Okay, r/cicada on Reddit was like I'm a subreddit mod there, and I just want to quickly rant about this.
Nice plug.
He's single, ladies.
Yep.
We're
Yes.
stuck, but okay.
It's not. You don't want to have this curse. It's not a good place. It's not a good place. So basically, well, let me go into more detail before I say it's not a good place.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
basically,
not a
it
good
was
place yet.
created. It was created in 2013. It don't go there to solve. It's like the biggest cicada group on the internet. Like not for solving.
Over-
The best
over
thing for
20,000
solving.
people.
The
What is
biggest
it, about
community of solvers is the Cicada Solvers Discord server. But like this is the biggest community, I guess, of cicada interested people. And so like the vast majority of people here, because there's like what 25,000 people there, like they don't know what they're doing because like they're not in the Discord, like they don't care about cryptography, they're just there for the mystery. So awful ideas on the puzzle, awful posts get like tons of upvotes. Like you'll see posts with, like hundreds of upvotes that literally say, guys, LP is just a calendar. And it's like, okay, glad I have to delete that now because people are gonna actually start thinking LP is a calendar
Oh, yeah.
with 58 days. And so like as a result of this, if people don't know what they're doing on this place, Cicada should basically just be used as like a hub for newcomer questions, so to speak. And like on top for like newcomers that are like interested in the puzzle, catch them up to speed, and like
Mhm.
you know basically point them to the Discord. Which
And you know what?
it
I'm
basically
sure
should.
If you were to just start posting, I tried this, didn't work on the Reddit, Puck would be over the moon. He would cry.
I wouldn't do that. I'd tell you, okay, cool, and then probably repost it in the Discord and also tell you to join it.
And you'd be crying.
Because
over it.
there are just not enough people solving on our Cicada.
I think
And like there's an actual difference too. If I post something on our Cicada, like it will get way more attention than anybody else on that thing too, which is also a funny thing because people don't understand anything and they go, oh, somebody has, because my Reddit account is Cicada Solvers Puck, it's my ologist for that, and people go, oh, they have Cicada Solver in their name or something, and somehow it gets like way more like
You're
attention. That might be
verified on
because I'm a mod.
Twitter. It's like being
That's
verified
not-
on Twitter, and I
that's
hate
not.
you.
That's not true.
I know.
All right. So basically, because there's so many bad people on our Cicada, every post, or not bad people, like bad posts, they don't know what they're doing. Like every post is like needs to be approved, which does remove a lot of the spam, but also it's pretty much vacant. But trust me, if you do have like an actual newcomer question and you want to post it there, you can also do it in newcomer questions in the Discord server. But like if you do see it there, you can post it. It might take like a day or two for me to approve it, but that's probably at the most. So I'll get to it. The only like, and also if you do post something solving related, I will keep it up, of course. And also there's memes there, which is also pretty good. But like the only real things of like interest on the subreddit are apart from memes. Like I do like yearly recaps, but like there's rarely anything to like go into too much detail on a recap. So it's basically just saying go to the Discord. Our Cicada is basically a place to get people where they need to be. And speaking of the Discord, I've been doing these things called like voice sessions, which like we get people in VC. There's a whole calendar for them. Ever since like the beginning of 2020, I've been doing these things, and they have like three main goals. They are to document, unify, and promote community solving. In terms of documenting, every voice session that like we actually do stuff in, I do these things called voice session notes, where I basically just organize everything we said, everything we talked about. And this will also during the voice session, I get people to talk about what they're working on, and this helps them, or this helps the people out, like the community out, when the people that are working on stuff either fail to document or never mention their attempt, like in the Discord server or anywhere else. So these voice session notes basically, like, they basically serve to document community work at a very like rudimentary level. Also in terms of unifying community activity, like it gets people working on the same thing, because sometimes like it's somewhat uncommonly, like we'll get people together and we'll be like, hey, let's take a look at like Mobius function and alternatives like that, and we can like, I don't know, basically just get people working on the same thing. It helps getting people on the same page. However, as of now, this is kind of like uncommon how this happens. Like we don't, it's, let me think of a good way of putting this. It's like it's kind of rare that like we get multiple people, like 3 or 4 people actually working on something together. But trust me, I'm like working on ways to improve this. Soon there'll be some updates to that. So to solving sessions for those curious to them.
Oh, yeah.
And it also just helps people in terms of unifying community activity. It helps people like when they're working outside of VC as well. VC's voice channel. It helps people like hear about ideas they might be interested in, and it's also ideas other people are interested in, and they can talk about them there. In terms of the third goal of them is to like promote community activity, and this one's basically just like it shows people are doing work. Like when you see like, I don't know, 10 people in the solving voice channel, it's not too bad. Like just to see, like, I mean that's pretty good as a community thing. Like it's never a bad thing to see people actually doing work, and it's like a tangible number, you know what I mean? And it's also just fun to look at things together, so that it just kind of promotes it that way.
I think it also keeps things from dying out. I like that there's kind of a schedule to it where it kind of just stops things from stagnating, because there's always kind of things scheduled to happen.
Mm-hmm. And
even if nothing ends up happening.
Nothing, which kind of does happen because of like time zones and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, more on that. Well, never mind. I'll introduce that in a couple solving sessions once I get on that. Glad to leave the suspense. What were you gonna say, Clunker?
Actually, I wanted to say 2 things. First, I think that the VCs, and there have been days where it's like it's rainy, it's cruddy outside, it's cold. Puck is the only one sitting in Solver's VC actually genuinely doing solving. Is that it's motivating. I think it's and when I first joined, it was evidence that there are people still working on this. Sure, you can read the logs, but seeing someone sitting in a channel and waiting for somebody to have a conversation with, that was really...
Oh, stop! That's sad. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
It's actually not
lonely.
It's not waiting to have a conversation. It's not waiting to have a conversation. It's creating conversations. Let me tell you something. Also, one thing before I forget about it, not to get off topic of me being lonely, but Taiwo, you said about like how without these the community activity would stagnate. That's basically the reason why we started doing it. Somebody was reminiscing about like the time when, all right, well, for brief context, in like August 2019, the documentary came out, and a lot of newcomers came in, and they didn't really know what they were doing. I was one of them. I'd been here for like 2 months, but never did anything. And then I was like, oh, what's this Red Book thing? And then we didn't know what we were doing, and a lot of dumb stuff happened, but there was a huge like hype for it. And basically somebody was reminiscing like a few months later, and they're like, I wonder if we could get people in VC again. And I was like, sure, I have the time. I'll just like make like 4 of these things a month, and then it's just evolved from there.
There just used to always be someone in VC during Red Book.
Yeah,
kind
like
of
there
just
were
join
literally
in.
people 24 hours in multiple
Yeah.
VCs. It was wild.
Mhm.
We were like, let me look at these words because we didn't know anything. But
Reading Red Book in like
just literally,
old German.
I literally just read Red Book. Carl Jung's the psychologist Red Book. It's the stupidest
sweet.
thing. We got funny memes out of it though, and that's all I care about.
Oh,
But to clarify, that culminated with us realizing that it's not really relevant.
Oh, it's not at all. We didn't know what we were doing, and
You
people
know,
were
we
like,
were
"Oh, there's
kind of
hype. We might as well go along with it because we want the hype."
yeah, we enjoyed the activity.
It
Well,
makes
I-
me feel
in
young
In
again.
hindsight, that
become
was actually
sales.
good on you. I was good on the community, or the
Yeah.
people, like the 8 people that are here, and like actually knew what they were doing. But
Mhm.
because you'd rather have hype and bad work, or than no work. You know what I mean? And no
Yeah.
hype. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
and
don't
I
worry.
still kind of go with that today.
I'll
what were
be
you
I'll be
saying?
coming back to Red Book. Don't worry, I have a lot to say about what
Oh
we've
dear,
learned
oh dear
from Red
Lord.
Book.
Oh
Hey,
no.
don't worry.
All right, before we
don't
get to
worry.
Carl Jung and
If
how
you
he
become a
actually
premium-
talked
You
about
better
the
stop
collective
before I get
unconscious.
political. Don't make me start talking about the material conditions of people in online privacy communities. Like, don't make during this era. Don't get me started.
All right,
Oh,
so
boy.
basically, Carl Jung, he was a psychologist, basically like a student of Sigmund
Yeah,
Freud,
so
if you know
when
him.
Edward Snowden was a young lad.
Okay.
Getting political.
Actually, no.
Political
No,
warning.
when George Bush was president and
Oh, no.
implemented the Patriot Act.
Okay,
that
so
is
basically,
the whole
to
subject
wrap up solving sessions and to wrap up politics, basically, for the voice session notes I kind of alluded to earlier, you can go to pastebin.com/spiderpuck. The capital S, capital P. I don't know where the name spider came from. It's just something I had to put there, and it's the first word I thought of. That doesn't mean anything. Don't DM me about that because people have done that before. I don't like it, guys. Please stop DMing me
Is it a
about
clue?
It's not a clue, guys. It's not gonna solve LP. I'm not a spider. I'm not a bug. This may be a bug puzzle, but I'm not a bug. Or you can go to cicadasolvers.com/VC. And speaking of cicadasolvers.com, we have Artorius right here. And all on the
That's
mic as
me.
well. And he runs it.
That's me. Yes, I do indeed. So CicadaSolvers.com is essentially an attempt to create a new wiki. That sounds like it's not that great of a task, but it's pretty monumental. Every attempt previously, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, there were some Kanban boards, there were discussion boards, there were forums, there were GitHubs, Megas, Google Drives, a lot of different things, but none of them really took an overarching approach to it. There is a lot of good content out there. For example, on some GitHubs and GitLabs, you can find a lot of tools, you can find a lot of assets. There is one prominent GitHub, Screen 314's GitHub has some great timelines and information on some of the earlier puzzles. But as far as reorganizing the information found on the wiki, none of them have been really fully fleshed out. I decided to make an attempt, start an attempt about, before CicadaSolvers.com, I created 3301archive.com, which is no longer functional. I started that in 2019. It went for about a year. During that time, around 33 days, as Buck said, yes.
That's an inside joke, not real.
That's an inside joke. At the time, I didn't really know anything about web development. I learned as I went along, and as many people do with their projects, it got abandoned. I decided to make an improved version of that, which is currently ongoing. It's called CicadaSolvers.com. The current task that I am working on with it is rewriting entirely and expanding all of the What Happened articles that are found on the Uncovering Cicada Wikia. It is an incredibly big task. So currently, CicadaSolvers.com is larger than the Uncovering Cicada Wikia, although the Uncovering Cicada Wikia has more complete content. That is because I am still working on the 2012 walkthrough.
I don't think one has more potential for the other. I think they have different potentials.
No, I just meant purely by page count. So currently, CicadaSolvers.com has over 150 pages. The Uncovering Cicada Wikia is at, I believe, 131 right now.
Ooh,
However,
I need to get that
Not
down.
that it's a competition or anything.
no, not that anybody's
not that I want
keeping
a skinnier
count.
page count. I want a skinnier count.
Well, on my secret website, I have 800 pages, so I mean, I don't know what to tell
They're
you.
all in check, and nobody can read them. Not even Sferdy. It's kind of a problem. It's all
Yeah,
in
my
Croatian.
uncles are
The
very
other half is in
disappointed in me.
Croatian.
Now, as it currently stands, although you cannot find all of the information of 2013 and 14 yet, the 2012 article is around 4 or 5 times, or I say article, it's actually over 100 articles. I divided everything as the Uncovering Cicada Wiki is 2012 What Happened page has essentially 1 or 2 pages with a few branching pages. I divided everything up into 15 stages, which comprise, I think, 5 to 10,000 words just on the core walkthrough, which is over 5 times the size of the Uncovering Cicada Wiki is. And I also wrote over 100 auxiliary pages as well, probably about another 10,000 words for the reason it's kind of silly, but everyone was really wanting like a page, and this could never really happen on the fandom framework, but they wanted a page for every single event, every single image, every single piece of media that 3301 has ever released. I decided to do that. I've organized them into chronological and alphabetical glossaries. It's a pretty big walkthrough. I wouldn't try to read it through in one sitting, but even that is just the 2012 walkthrough. This website is not just walkthroughs. For example, as I said in my introduction, it is the host of this podcast. You can find a lot of other stuff there, some stuff that is not even on the wiki, as Puck was saying. The voice chat transcripts from 2021 and 2020 are available on this site. That's cicadasolvers.com/VC. You find, walkthroughs. You can find the CicadaCast, the documentary, tutorials, voice chat, assets, tools, everything you want to know about the Liber Primus, the Gematria Primus, all of the literature 3301 has used, all of the audio they put out, the artwork, their operating system, updates, auxiliary communication. It's basically an attempt to make the Uncovering Cicada Wikia a more newcomer-friendly place. It's also got a lot of information for veteran solvers, but I found it to be as if the Uncovering Cicada Wikia was not as newcomer-friendly as it needed to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's truly not the best experience to just dive right into the Wikia. And I will admit, as funny as I find it, I am not the kind of person who will force newcomers to suffer just because I did. I think that's really bad.
Read the wiki.
Yeah, read the wiki.
That's the classic line. Read the wiki, because all of the
Go
information
on.
is
I'm gonna make you read puzzle
Have you
No matter
tried reading Have you tried reading the wiki?
No matter how long it might take you to find it, the information is in the wiki somewhere.
Oh, and if it's not on the
literally
wiki,
just use the
and if
search
it's not
feature.
on
I
the-
made a whole infographic.
if it's not on the wiki and it's not on Cicada Solvers, it's on the forum, and it's not there, then
It's on
I
info
don't know
too.
what you're talking about.
If it's not there, then it's on GitHub.
We don't have it.
We've discussed the voice sessions and CicadaSolvers.com. One of the other recent developments in organizational aspects of the Cicada Solvers community is the implementation of the Community Liaison role, for which I will let Clockwork, our one Community Liaison, talk about.
Hi, it's me again, Clockwork. So there are some things that I do want to talk about, and these are not in any particular ranked importance. It's in random order. But one of the things that I've observed over the last year is how the Discord contributes to people collaborating with one another. And that's also a challenge that we're trying to overcome, because we want people to work together. We kind of, we don't want things to be cliquey, but we want people to connect with people that they vibe with, I guess, or that they're producing work that they enjoy, that they want to help out with. And that does happen. I think that over the past year, we've seen The scale of that increased. We have more instances. We can actually measure that has improved. But that's also difficult because, once again, you go back to the documentation problem. You have two sets of documentation, which one is presented, yada, yada, yada. But that's just one of the things that I do around here is try to grease those gears a little bit, get that stuff happening. Good thing is that it happens on its own organically, so I can kind of take a hands off to that. Something else that I try to do, and we all try to do, all the staff here. So it's a challenge because we want to appeal and provide the infrastructure to newcomers. If you know nothing about cryptography, we want to give you the tools and the information you need to explore this puzzle more. And at the same time, giving the more advanced tools, more advanced knowledge to the people who are techies, who are already familiar with programming, with cryptography. And so the implementation of that is something that we're continuing to work on. Once again, the Cicada Solvers wiki, the Cicada Solvers wiki and the cicadasolvers.com are an effort to try to consolidate those things. So the next few things are really important. So listen close, listeners.
Okay, I'm listening.
What? No, I'm just kidding. So
Are
the
you
word for
listening,
this
though?
would be group polarization. Another word would be groupthink. And that is when everybody hops on the bandwagon and puts all of their effort into doing something. And Redbook is an excellent example about some of the things that we've already talked about, degrees of thematic and pragmatic separation. And the fact that people really jumped on board with Redbook. For 2 or 3 weeks, people were intensely all doing the same thing. And while that's good, it inspired people. People got active in the community. It was
People didn't know what they were doing, and with only people who didn't know what they were doing things, it just reinforced that people didn't know what they were doing, and it only made things worse in the long run, so to speak. Although it obviously was reversible.
So on the one hand, we do need people to come together and focus on the same thing. That's also a problem that we have. There are so many different topics that you can tackle. Oh, you want to go do the Mayfly pages. You want to study 5 dots. You want to do the rune frequency. You want to do n-grams. That there are so many different things. The collaboration often doesn't happen on the same thing. But on the opposite end of that, when mass collaboration happens, it can lead us in the wrong direction. So there's a kind of interesting middle ground that we have to serve. Another really important thing that we have to consider, we might have touched on it, is failure fatigue. That one of the God honest truths here is that you will fail a lot. Not to say that you won't learn things, but you will come up with no solution. And that's really, really draining. I'm sure as everyone knows.
Yeah.
I don't really have to explain this.
The one thing we have in common here is that we cannot solve this puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, the longer... Okay, I've noticed a lot of people think, oh, I've been here for a while. I am the best. Obviously not. You haven't solved it. And you've been here how long? And it's like, bro. So, no matter what happens, as long as it is unsolved, we are all losers.
We're all still learning.
Especially when you're here.
I know, right?
So here's the question. How do we overcome failure fatigue? This is a really serious problem, especially in the winter. And especially after you get a gold nugget, or let's just say a gem. Somebody makes a really good observation or throws out an idea. And there's a week where you're really passionate and everyone's throwing their effort in. But because it hasn't turned up everything or anything, the interest just kind of dissolves. It fizzles out over time. And when that happens over and over again, you get fatigued. And it actually is at this point that you should stop. Not trying to solve per se, but stop trying. You're under no pressure. It's not going anywhere. Trust me.
We're all at the same point.
And use that as time to just look at all the trees. And it's a kind of sounds funny, but the cicada even said, see the forest through the trees. But we have a lot of damn trees, and all of them have a little bit of information about the puzzle, relevant or not. And
speaking of trees, that clip art tree that they used at one time, did they pay for that, or did they steal it? Do we know, Tyler?
They do not engage in
They
illegal
stole
activities.
I
Just
think
like how
it
they
was
stole
clip art. It was clip
I
art, meaning
believe
it
it
was
was-
Creative Commons, right?
I
Oh,
believe it
they
was
stole
art
so
under
much,
Creative
too.
Commons, yeah.
They stole the welcome mat. They stole the duck. I mean, they stole everything. Stole the
I want my
mayfly.
duck back.
So
Stole the langman.
I guess the concept of
Oh my heart.
anonymity is interesting in copyright law and like fair use and stuff, because like how do you file a copyright claim against an anonymous individual? Also, I think there's a whole thing about commercial use, and as long as the puzzle isn't commercial use, like a lot of those laws aren't
God,
infringed.
yeah.
Right. So
aren't infringed.
yeah, that's obviously a strong word, stole, because they've never attempted to monetize the puzzle.
yeah,
in any
totally.
way.
No, they've done
True,
nothing
true.
questionable.
Not to get into the ethics of using someone's art without their permission.
Anyways,
But
Blackbird.
that is another
no,
thing.
but it's interesting. So these conversations might sound like they're disparate and tangential, but in fact, we have a fairly good idea of where the mayfly reference image came from. That's just a fun fact. And you go, what? It's from like some weird foreign language textbook about bugs. And you go, what? How did they come across this? Was there like some student who was just like, oh, I guess I'll use this in my silly online puzzle? It's just that even that to me is like a fun fact. It's interesting. It's intriguing. It's one of the trees in the forest. Or maybe it's like a weed. Or maybe it's like poison ivy. You can make that call. The thing is, how do we define not only the efficacy of somebody's idea, but is there a way that we can measure that? We've touched on this idea over the course of this episode, and this is what I want to say, that making this kind of evaluation is tricky because you make sure that you're not gatekeeping. You want to make sure that you go, no, read the wiki.
Yeah, that's something I've.
You should
let
read
me
it.
just interject, if I may interject for a moment.
Yes, please.
What you are referring to as gatekeeping, I have also struggled with, because
And also
especially
participated
on the
in.
wiki. I have also participated in this gatekeeping, as you call it. But it's hard because to explain some parts of the past puzzle steps, you have to truly understand it, you have to have some more background knowledge on like how it works or like why it is or what's even being talked about. And so the question there is always, how far back, like how much context do we give? Or like do we just give them the context, or like give them the directions to
And this kind of fits into a broader narrative, right? And it's pragmatically, you probably don't need to give them the whole context. But
No.
having the whole context is mighty convenient, isn't it? Because you see how all the pieces fit together.
Specifically on the Outguess page, it's either Outguess or RSA. I'm pretty sure it was RSA. But I sent, right before I had like completely changed the pages, I sent a copy of it to an old friend to review. And he just said, looks good, just put a base 64 table in it or something. And I remember being like, why? He's like, so people just don't ask about it. Because apparently he had been asked in the past about a lot about like, well, what is it? Base 64. And so he was like, just throw it in there. It'll save you time on questions. And granted, I have never been asked about base 64. But it's also, I look back and I wonder, is that relevant? Do they need that? They can Google it. Like you have your Google box and your TikToks and your stuff.
Yeah. I think there is an amount of fundamental knowledge or fundamental context that everyone should have. The amount of context that everyone should have is quite large for this puzzle, I think that kind of birthed Read the Wiki, in that we can kind of assume that if anybody doesn't know something, that at least if there's a decent page on the wiki about it, then we can just kind of, instead of going deeper into an explanation, we can just kind of link a wiki page on it if they ask, rather than go into like a deep explanation of every single dependent topic under every single thing that you say.
My view of it has changed over the years. I used to just link a wiki page and say, if you have questions or you're stuck, Google it. And, for the most part, I still stick to that. But now I think, especially with the Discord, it is easier because, like, you don't have people just pinging out on Discord and never returning because they can't figure out how, like you did on IRC. And so it's easier to just explain that to them, or like where they are stuck at.
I think there's it's quite rewarding. It's quite rewarding to explain something to somebody and to know that you've like helped them. If you explain something and you think, okay, from the way that they're asking, they probably don't know what this is, but I'm just going to assume that they know it, because if they don't know it, they could just Google it, right? The result of that is that they read your response and it's not really particularly helpful for them, and you know that there's like a 90% chance they're just not going to look it up and think, this is too complicated, I don't understand. So
it's hard
I like to try and give as much context as I can.
And that can lead to people think you're talking down to them, because I know I've had people get mad at me in the past for being like, I know this, like, and I'll be like, well, I'm sorry, I am used to people not knowing this, so there you go.
Yeah, I think an open it's quite a nice open dialogue that Solvers has, where you kind of, there's a general assumption that nobody is a complete idiot, but nobody is like an all-knowing person, so that when you suggest like, oh, so then we used like @bash, which is like a reverse substitution cipher, by the way, and then you carry on, people generally aren't like offended, or like, you can just kind of, especially on Discord where people read the logs a lot, if I'm talking to like Puck and I say like @bash, but also, also known as reverse substitution, or like a reverse dictionary substitution cipher, Puck knows I'm not talking to him. Puck knows I'm not explaining @bash to him, but like I'm kind of explaining it to the general kind of person reading, the lurker in the server, Which is good. It creates a nice atmosphere.
I hope that didn't come across as me like being pointed at anyone.
No.
And now I'm gonna like bring it back in a circular motion of, oh god, did I give too much context into what I was saying in the topic in the first place?
Well, the context
okay. We are making fun of people, but the real thing about people is, what do they want to know? Okay. I'm changing the topic here. This is not the same thing. But what do people know? What do people know?
Nothing.
And the thing is, what do they want to know? And a lot of newcomers, they come into this puzzle and they're like, you know what? I want to know what's happening here. What was the last progress, so to speak? And they go,
I remember.
And then we come in here with, what progress? And that's a thing. We have an interesting thing here. Like, what do we define as progress? We have like,
how do we answer that question?
We have like tier 1 progress, so to speak, of like an actual puzzle step being solved. Like, oh, there was a page solved. And there's like, I hate to number the tiers because there's lots of in-betweens, but tier 1 definitely exists. And say like a tier 2, for instance, is like, know that these numbers are basically arbitrary. There's stuff in between. I'm just calling it that.
I think tier 1 is definitely
the tier 2. Yeah, tier 1 definitely exists. And tier 2 is like, the order matters. The numbers do not.
Okay, dude, we get it.
Okay. Let me speak. I got tier 2 in my mind right now. So tier 2 is like, say we find something interesting about the puzzles that we didn't find before, something at like the level of like recently we saw that the the leaked email was actually verified.
Yeah.
And like that's, I'd classify that as like tier 2. Like that's an actual thing that's
Yes.
like important, you know?
Mhm.
And it might not be important solving, but that's like an actual find, you know, like that's legitimate. And there's like tier 3, so to speak, of like, so like kind of like trivia, like, oh, we found a new gematria primus sum
Yeah.
to 761,
Low end
stuff like that. Yeah, yeah.
Grayscale images.
Stuff like that.
Or
like an
evidence that-
irregularity in rune frequencies of the first letter.
or
like,
the GP is older than we thought it was.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
a fun fact, and that's really relevant and important. Continue.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to lead directly to a solution. Well,
But that's-
actually, maybe that's like another tier.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah,
information.
This is it.
So-
This
some
Hey,
is
kind
it.
of
everybody,
fun
I
fact
want you to
thing.
remember this conversation. We
Yeah,
are
yeah,
going to
this is
have
actually really important.
geometria on one of these days. We're going to touch on that very subject. We're going to come back.
Yes, we
I'm thinking this is important for a different reason. What Tyler just did right here, this is actually really important. And it's kind of subtle. He said like, oh, like there's like a different tier here. There might need to be a different tier. And this is something like, and I kind of disagree with that, so to speak. Like there's, and this is the problem with like categorizing ideas.
Yeah.
This is slightly off topic, but like ideas in terms of tiers, like there's no way. This kind of goes back to what we were saying before, and like there's no way to classify an idea as like good or bad.
Yeah.
And like just saying that like everybody has their own opinions, and which is obvious, but and in the sense of, oh, what ideas are good, that's like really interesting.
These
I
tiers,
don't really know how to like explain
these
it well,
tiers
but that is
should be
something I want to touch on.
self-evident to everybody. Even if you're new, this should be quite self-evident. Hopefully, even it doesn't matter if you're not cognizant of it. Just that if someone were to point this out to you, and the reason why I say that is because that Puck and I have a bit of a disagreement about this on the specific, the semantics of this. But redefining what progress is, to me, is how we change our approach to the puzzle. Because when you find out what Mayfly sums to 411, something like 441, and the parable numbers, that even these little tiny connections, to me, that's big. That because that's what we got. And then those are little strikes that we're making against this massive heavy stone, and those are the cracks.
I don't even think it's even so much as redefining progress. The progress that you're speaking of has always been progress. It's just that when newcomers come in, really the only tangible progress that they can see at this point is whether or not a new page has been solved.
They care for tier 1 progress. Whereas the longer you've been in this puzzle, the more like tiers you go down of what becomes interesting to you. Because like I think with what
we need to manage expectations, because it was truly blown up by the media. So
media is never your friend.
No.
We're gonna say Puck.
Should be though.
Well, even considering tier 2, Tier 2 has concrete information. For example, Puck mentioned the confirmation of the leaked email. For many years, although it was essentially assumed to be true, it was never able to be proven because the original leaker of the leaked email, did not include a PGP key in it. He had stripped it stripped it to conceal their identity. In 2020, a PGP verified version of the leaked email was found. If you're not familiar with the leaked email, it essentially has Cicada or 3301 telling exactly what they're about, giving their values, saying what they are and what they are not. They say they're not a hacker group, not a wearers group, that they're about promoting digital freedoms, liberty, and privacy. Now that we know that is from their mouth, that's an extremely significant development. It is progress, absolutely. But it's not the progress that newcomers are going to be enthralled with.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that we had those words. Everybody at the time, when the leaked email was leaked, was of the mindset that it was real. It was kind of like a conspiracy that it was fake, or like, something that it was kind of like something missing from the wiki, some missing piece of the puzzle, because it was leaked because we were never really supposed to have it. It was found because the person sharing it wasn't really very careful with it.
Now, for those of you who don't know, at the very top of the leaked email, it says, "Do not share this information." We
Mhm.
apparently were not meant to know this. The individual or individuals who leaked it were very brave in doing this, and because of it, we have a much better idea of what 3301 is as an organization.
So, really quick, I just want to go back to something. This is very important. That we want to make sure that these tiers are self-evident to everybody, because we don't want to be the only ones making determinations of what we think has efficacy. This is a community decision. And that also plays into, we don't want to gatekeep. That we actually want feedback from the community. If you guys think of any ways that we can improve measuring progress or measuring what people bring forward. I actually heard a really great quote the other day. You can't manage what you don't measure. And we actually we do measure things. Don't worry. We manage. So yeah, there you go. That's my little Clockwork Liaison spiel.
You're gonna have your spiel. I'm gonna go on mine for like just one thing I want to mention. This puzzle is, as some of you may know, it's complicated. So in like there's multiple well, just as like I have some sort of like kind of okay analogy. Like there's gonna be numerous like logical steps in solving this, and we're gonna have to make some assumptions. Like say just for an example, there's like eight like logical steps we have to do to solve this puzzle. Like we're gonna have to make some assumptions to get anywhere. Because you cannot just try everything for each of those 8 steps. Like that doesn't like that's just it's just not feasible. So and the thing that like we have to make these assumptions to get anywhere, like that results in the problem that like assumptions they also give us blind spots. So like we the only way to move forward is to like make high quality assumptions, and that also kind of goes back to the idea like oh how are ideas good and bad, but the only way, at least in my eyes, is to know if an idea is good or bad is basically like community opinion on stuff. So basically, the whole thing with like good and bad ideas is that there's no way to tell apart from like community opinion. And the more voices we can have on that, the stronger that opinion becomes. Sure, there might be some like group polarization with what Clocker was talking about earlier, but definitely having different sides to things will be helpful. And to like create a community, and to be a part of creating a community that people can actually throw out ideas and well, like I think that's just really cool to have people throw out ideas and like have them actually be listened to, even if they're not necessarily the best. Sometimes they will be shut
Oh
down.
yeah,
That's
some of
kind of
y'all are
gonna happen.
brave.
But like
Some of y'all are
seriously
brave.
though, it's really cool to actually have that in this community. Thank you to everybody who's listening that actually like contributes. It's actually an absolute blast to be a part of the
It
community and
really
helping
is.
that.
It really is.
Thank
It's
you.
so fascinating to watch. Thank you guys. And you know, the thing is we're running off of assumptions, but we do try to have those bedrock facts. And that the consolidation of information, the organization of all of this, that it helps us. That we at least can lay our assumptions on top of something that is concrete. And how we go about creating that bedrock of knowledge, how we go about how we go about continuing to implement changes.
How difficult it was to organize this episode about
Oh
organization.
my god.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
guys.
No. I actually want to talk about something. Oh my god, I'm so mad right now. Oh my god, I'm leaving the podcast. You will not see me in the next episode, I swear. Now if I actually don't show up. So I would talk about
Have
can you
fun
talk
with
about the
that.
time on like you went to like to project management people and asked them about this? Because I think that's really interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were like
And then after that, we'll wrap this up officially.
They were completely sort of lost. So I mean, it was kind of underwhelming, the level of, I was expecting some kind of,
So what exactly did you do? Where exactly did you go?
I went to the project management subreddit, and I basically just posted the situation I said about the puzzle and how we've kind of had no progress for like 7 years. Nobody knows anything that's valid or invalid, and we just have like an abundance of information, but no real meaningful way to put it anywhere outside of like the places that it's put when it's mentioned. There's no tagging system or categorization or like hierarchical grouping system that we can possibly use that would be in any way meaningful or useful to anyone. And they basically just agreed. I think is like
Yeah.
the kind of gist of it. I got suggestions like, you
Yeah,
should use
dude,
a
sucks for
spreadsheet.
you.
Yeah, to try and like I think
How about a
the,
wiki?
yeah, maybe a wiki. The general suggestion was a kind of database style system of just recording literally everything. But again, like, it's such a difficult issue to grasp. I think that we would, if we found a way to organize this, it would be groundbreaking project management like news.
No,
I think.
this is because first of all, we don't have money. Actually, you could argue that all of this effort is costing something, but that we don't have time constraints. Funnily, that we don't have the anxiety to motivate us to meet a deadline. And then you have to talk about, what about your deliverables? What even is a deliverable? And you go back to talking about how we define progress. That it's a lot.
Yeah.
You can't yawn on the podcast. Hey,
I
viewers,
literally can.
vote him off.
I just
Vote
did.
him off the island.
Do you have any
Vote
idea
him
what
off the
time?
island.
What time
Smash
it is
that like
today?
button if you want to vote Tyler off the
I
island.
actually do have an idea. Okay, guys,
So,
how do we organize
how do
the
we
outro for this?
how do we organize the outro? I know. Okay, ready? Ready? Everybody, hands in the middle. Come on, hands in the middle. Hands in the middle.
Just say the outro. Just say the outro.
Hands in the middle. We're all gonna do it.
My hands are literally right there. They're on top of
Clip
you.
your nails.
You want to
Oh,
know
I
when my
agree.
hands are clockwork?
Ha, 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 on knitting needles. Guys, I would like to thank everybody who has come to this live recording of the podcast this week. It was a lot of fun to put together. It was a lot of fun to make. Smash that like button.
Okay, you're absolutely awful at this. You're absolutely awful at this. This has been CicadaCast
Smash
episode
that
3.
like button, hit
Shut up.
subscribe, and make
my
sure
God.
you ring that bell on the YouTube channel.
Don't even do that. Don't even do that. Just go to the Cicada Solvers Discord server, and that's all we care.
Guys,
This has been CicadaCast episode 3. Thanks to everyone for coming live or listening later, and have a great night.
thank you guys. Really quick, guys. They still